We'll call our meeting back to order after consultation with administration. It's been determined that our procedure bylaw doesn't specifically speak to a motion to divide a question. However, Robert's rules does somewhat and indicates that it's not debatable, but it is something that is called to a vote to pass. So there will be no debate on the motion to split. However, we will call the question, so if we can see the motion, please. All right, Councillor Magoon, do you know, just for my knowledge, where do you want to split that exactly?
Would be after the to collect $14,270,000 of net municipal taxes, period.
At the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, seeing as there will be no debate on the motion to split, we will call the question. Motion to split if committee could, oh, it just says move. Motion to split if committee could please vote now. That is carried 6-1 with Councillor Chambers voting against, so our motion is now split. So our direction is now split, so we'll deal with the first part. The committee reached consensus to set a residential mill rate of blank and non-residential mill rate of blank to collect $14,270,000 of net municipal taxes. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the direction request?
Chair, if I could just, as a matter of wording, just because we're not prepared with the specific mill rates that would equate to the 14.2 million. So if committee is comfortable with this, if we could just say that committee reached consensus to reach a residential and non-residential mill rate to collect $14.2 million, we'd have to go back and redo that calculation.
Okay, committee administration has recommended a change to the wording. Is there any opposition to that change? Councillor Taylor?
Just that it was 14.27.
Yeah, we know what we have to bring in the mill rates.
Yeah, you said 2 million, but you didn't forget the 7. You didn't mean to forget the 7.
My mistake, 14.27.
Thank you.
Noted. Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
My pleasure.
Any other opposition? Okay, we will make that change then to reflect administration's suggestion. So the direction request now reads that committee reach consensus to reach a residential. To set a residential mill rate. To set a residential mill rate and non-residential mill rate to collect $14,270,000 of net municipal taxes. Okay. So, committee, comments or questions? Do you have a question? In the request for decision document in the analysis section, number 2 says a 0% increase to the 2024 tax rate will generate $14,146,752 on the spreadsheet document. Unless I'm reading it wrong. The same 0% is 14,426,752. Is there a typo in there?
Through to all of committee, there is a typo, the figure on the 2025 rates of taxation worksheet is the correct one.
So the correct one is 14,426,752.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
And my apologies for the error.
No, that's okay. The only reason I brought it up is because it makes a difference. One is a decrease and one is a 0% increase. So just want clarification on that. Are there any other comments or questions on the proposed direction? Councillor Chambers?
I'll just say I won't be supporting the motion on the floor as it stands. I'm very much in the same mindset as Mayor Nissen that anything other than a 0% increase, I won't be supporting, so.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chambers. Committee? Councillor Magoon?
I just, if I could get administration's perspective on, the direction on the floor. So if I can refer to the RFD, the first page. Option number 2 says a 0% increase to the 2024 tax rate will generate, 14,146,000. This direction on the floor is, 14,270,000. So in your opinion, would it be like a very slight increase to 0% is what the overall net effect would be?
Councillor Magoon, administration just clarified that 14,146,752.
Yeah.
Is a typo.
Oh, I'm
And that
sorry, I
it's
missed that.
correct on the spreadsheet. It should be 14,446,752.
I
So all
apologize.
matches the number on the spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Anything else? Okay. Doing nothing, then we will call the direction request. The committee reach consensus to set a residential mill rate and non-residential mill rate to collect $14,270,000 of net municipal taxes. You can see that, please. Hey, if you could please vote now. So there's. And that is defeated 4-3 with councillors Toss, Ostashik, Chambers, and Mayor Nissen voting against. Yes, I have a procedural question for administration. Because that direction request was defeated, it makes the second part of the split direction moot, is it not? So does that get called question still, or is it just an invalid motion now?
Through the chair to members of council, I would just, either in, withdraw or rescind that motion, and vote to do that, or we could simply vote it down. But it is on the table.
All right, so the second part of that split direction is on the table for council or committee's consideration. Committee, anyone want to speak to it? Councilor Haas?
I'd like to go through the voting process because I'd like to speak to it as well, potentially. I know that the first part wasn't successful, but I have, some same thoughts as Councillor Magoon for that money as well. So if we can just vote it. That's my preference.
And as chair, my concern is if that passes, it's not leading back to anything.
Right.
The motion that informs that doesn't exist anymore. I'm gonna rule that that motion is now out of order. It's an invalid motion, and we're just gonna move on. Okay. So committee, we do still need sort of direction request in this matter. Comments, questions? Councilor Haas?
I just have a clarifying question, I guess, because, so the recommended action, which option is it referring to? Is it option 1, 2, or 3 in the report?
Due to all of committee, it would be option 3,
Option 3.
the 3% increase to the 2024 tax rate.
Anderson?
Thank you. And through the chair to committee, I'd like to seek consensus. The committee reached consensus to bring the 2025 tax rate bylaw forward to the May 6, 2025 regular meeting of council with a residential tax rate of 5.6154 and a non-residential tax rate of 9.5461. Those numbers reflect the 0% increase from the table on the last page of this report, and that is recommended action number 2 with those numbers.
Thank you, Anderson. So maybe we have a direction request on the table now. Discussion, Councilor McGill.
Yeah, thank you. If administration can speak to, and I realize it's on the table, but for transparency and for citizens to understand, if this motion or this direction request passes, what would be the total additional funds generated above the budget by way of this motion? And then I'll speak to it, Mr. Chair.
Administration.
Sorry, through to all of committee, if a 0% tax or 0% increase to the 2024 tax rate should be the one that passes, there will be municipal taxation revenue of 14,426,752 generated, which is an estimated $806,115,000 over the amount required to fund the adjusted budget.
And if I may, I'll follow up, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So, and is it fair to categorize that a good part of that is related to the increase in assessed value of properties throughout the town?
Through to all of committee, yes, it is.
So if I may speak to it then, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Yeah, I won't be supporting this. For myself, if we go back several years, there was over $400,000 collected municipally in additional funding over and above the required municipal taxes for the town to function. And at $400,000, the outcry from the citizens in the town, it was quite substantial. If it's the will of council to go over and above to a certain degree, understanding that we have things coming up like the rec center funding, water treatment, infrastructure, I'm okay having that conversation, but for myself, this seems a little excessive and I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGill. Committee. Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, I don't support it either. This represents a 3%, 3.7% increase in the net municipal taxes, which is the amount of money that overall you take out of people's pockets, and that's the amount that's important. I had proposed a 2.5, and that generated about a $630,000 reserve fund. But to take over $800,000 out of people's pockets when we've got this windfall and not help them out, especially in light of the fact that they're facing the utility fee increase, it's just a degree of insensitivity that I can't vote for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Haas.
Yeah, I'm not totally where I'm at with this one, but one number that definitely bothers me, and I heard it through the budget process, and I see it in the report, that our capital assets are currently underfunded by 6.1 million annually. And that's gonna continue, if we don't do something about this. You know, and unfortunately, past history, we talk about past history, but we also talk about past history of 0% for a number of years that is created or contributed to that as well. So we knew this was coming. We knew this day was coming, that we need to consider these, that we're underfunding the projects that we need to do, so. I'm not totally convinced on this, but that concerns me for the future, financially for our community, so, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas, and myself, Councillor Magoon, and Councillor Taylor. I won't be speaking in favor of this either. We undertook this whole exercise where all the capital, all the operating was all brought to us. We came up with a budget that we thought was an appropriate increase based on 2024 taxation. The fact that assessed values came significantly higher and bumped that higher than 3% is not citizens' fault. It's not our fault. It's an opportunity to revise what we worked so hard and took so much time to develop in the 2025 budget process, to take another opportunity to revise that, to generate some more income, to go above and beyond what we already decided to do. So I'm also not going to be in support of this unless there's an accompanying discussion about what happens with the $800,000 additional, because I'm not comfortable in just dumping it all into approved asset management plan. Councilor Magoon and then Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, I think those are my concerns, or at least in a very similar vein. Council decided on, establishing a budget and worked hard at establishing a budget. And now because of the impact of these assessed values, we're talking about an opportunity to collect over $800,000 more. I can't go out to the public and justify that. I just can't. Now, again, I think there's a conversation to be had about, well, what is an appropriate amount? Where do we want to try and adjust and make sure that we're investing in the community and the infrastructure? I think that is reasonable, but I can tell you, in terms of gut response to amounts collected, it's not plus $800,000 because of the community. They're gonna round that up to $1 million. And I don't think I can justify having a conversation with a community member when they say, how did you justify collecting almost $1 million more just because you thought you could get away with it? And I realize it's more complex than that, but we all know that's the conversation that'll be had in the community with members of the public. And I'm not prepared for that, and I won't support it. Thank you.
Councilor Magoon, Councilor Taylor, and then Councilor Chambers.
To suggest that we're doing nothing with asset management is incorrect. Again, I'll read from the utility rate fee increase question and answer. The town's water and sewer line infrastructure is aging and will require, this is the town's words, to keep the system dependable and functional. To address this old infrastructure, the town will have to do more water and sewer line rehabilitation projects. The adjustment to utility rates is necessary to pay for these projects. So we are doing something significant. Thanks.
CAO.
Thank you, Chair. So just so council's aware, the numbers that we put into this report, it's all related to tax funded assets, and tax funded assets are not water or sewer or anything else that we can charge a rate or what we consider rate dependent assets. So only our tax funded assets, which would be things like facilities where you can't charge people user rates, or roads, or playgrounds, for example, or bridges. When we did this in 2022, we determined that we needed to put an additional $6 million into our coffers on a yearly basis in order to sustain these assets long term. So that was a tax rate increase. If you do it all at once of about 43.6% right off the hop. So this is a debt that is accumulating. This is a debt that will have to be paid for, whether we want to take a bite out of it this year and next, or whether we don't. But at some point in time, that these rates or these tax supported assets and the increasing infrastructure deficit we will have to pay for it at some point in time. So, when we made our recommended action, we did have discussions about this, but since we passed this in 2022, we haven't made any movement towards funding this plan. And, and since then, we're about $800,000 behind in the count. Not including the additional information that we've gotten. And as an example, the rec center has increased that asset management plan by about another million. Our fleet management was too low, so we've adjusted for that. So we are behind in that plan, and if we want to fund it slowly over a period of time, that's our recommendation. Or it's gonna have to be funded in large jumps on a year-to-year basis. So that was the rationale for our recommendation.
Thank you for that, CEO, Councillor Chambers, and then Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. the Chair. I will be supporting the motion on the floor. I don't think this is, we're getting away with $800,000 of the taxpayers' money. I think this is one of those situations where, are you gonna look at the tip of your nose or you're gonna look at the tip of your finger? I think that we have an opportunity to have a 0% tax levy or tax rate increase, which is good considering what we're seeing in some of the other communities. And we, at some point, to CEO Passick's point, we will have to deal with these assets, and those big jumps are painful. They're hard on people, they're hard on families, they're hard on administration, and I think that the responsible thing to do is look long-term at what some of these things are. I would certainly be interested in a conversation about where the allocation of those funds go. I agree that would be a responsible conversation to have afterwards, but again, the 0% increase is what I think is the long-term most responsible thing to do based on the situation that we have ahead with what we need to put into our assets based on what the CAO has let us know.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers, Councillor Haas.
So with that, what I'd like to do is move to table this motion. To have that discussion on if what those dollars could go towards, if there's, so I'd like to move to table this.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. The committee, there is a direction to table this, I'm assuming until later in this meeting.
Yeah.
That's debatable, right?
You just had it, so let me find my section.
Would be pretty cool.
Through the chair, it is not included in the list of non-debatable motions.
Okay. All right, committee, is there any discussion regarding the motion to table until later in the meeting? Madison?
Thank you. Through the chair to, I don't know, committee administration. I'm in support of tabling this to have the other discussion. In my mind, this discussion is kind of like the motion that we just split. We kind of need to have this discussion before we make a motion that gets it falls out of order, if we should come back and not pass something like this. So I have a little bit of concern there about tabling something, or not tabling something, but bringing out a motion or consensus forward that because of this action could fall out of order, but as long as we're mindful of that and how we do it, maybe not setting specific dollar values to it, then I'm in full support of having that discussion. I think that discussion of what we do with our capital contributions is important.
Thank you for that, Madison, insightful, thank you. Councillor Taylor?
I think the cart before the horse is we decide how much money you're gonna spend, you have to spend, and then you decide how you're gonna spend it. That's just.
Councillor Magoo?
Yeah, I'll support tabling, but I think we also can approach the subsequent conversation with as simple as having a further conversation at another committee of the whole meeting on what to do. I don't think we specifically have to get into the nuts and bolts details of, well, we need to put things into this reserve fund if there's additional leftovers from, a future decision, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm good to table it.
Councillor Grace?
Thank you, sir. So how long, were you proposing to have this table? At the end of the meeting or?
Yeah, at the end of the meeting, yeah. Like sometime in this meeting, it'll come back.
Just one more thing. I think it's important to really hear what you said, Chris, and it's so important for us as council to be looking, not at the tip of our nose, but look in the future, look 5 years, 10 years down the road. And this $800,000, it may seem like a lot of money, and it is. But how far could it take us in things that we need to get done? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grace. Okay, if there's nothing else from committee on the motion to table, we will call to question.
Sorry,
Sorry,
just a quick question, and we're going to table it, and just to be clear on what council would like to see, afterwards, are we looking for specific accounts that we're going to be looking into, or,
I think, Councillor Haas, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I mean, it was brought up, there is some. If we knew where the money was going, cause I hear and I'm not saying that that decision is done tonight, but to have a fulsome conversation as committee to, if it were to pass, where would that 800,000, how would it benefit our community potentially for the future? Because I hear what Councillor Magoon is saying, but if there is substance to what it is, what it means to the community, then that's the kind of conversation that I was hoping to have as a committee. I don't see where that might go tonight, but at least have that conversation and see if we can have something to this.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Haas, to clarify, it was just to be tabled until later.
Yeah.
Councillor Haas had brought up that he wanted to have a discussion about if there is additional money available, how it's going to get allocated.
Yes.
And that's something I support. I'd indicated that I wasn't gonna support that, worded the way it was, because I didn't want to see the whole 800,000 going into, or whatever it is now, into asset management. I think there's other ways that if there is additional money available, it could benefit our community, whether it's 200, 400, 600, $800,000. So I would like to have that discussion before we call the court, or before we debate how much it's going to be. Anything further? Okay, if there's nothing else, then we will call the question. The motion to table. If we could see that, please. Councillor Haas, did you want to clarify that it's until later in the meeting?
Yeah, we should probably clarify that. It's David Campbell, Councillor Hawes, to table this motion till later in this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, there is a motion by Councillor Haas to table this motion to later this meeting. Committee, if you could please vote now. That is carried 6-1 with Councillor Taylor voting against. So the floor is now open. Committee, comments?
I
Councillor Haas?
tabled it to kick it up, because I understand and I agree, I mean, the asset management plan is important, obviously, because I think this doesn't just in water and sewer and all those and the lines, this is all of our capital assets, which we've known, whether it be our roads, whether it be our infrastructure, our buildings and things like that. You know, but at the same token, I think that there are other matters of our community as well. That could benefit from these dollars. I mean, what comes to mind in my mind is I know that there's a motion for a plebiscite on our rec center. If there was a choice not to proceed with and just keeping that asset the way it is, it's still gonna cost us money. It's still gonna cost infrastructure money to keep that. So if the community decides and says, no, I don't wanna charge, I don't want to, have that increase in my taxes, we still have that. You know, so that's something that, you know, again, if we could take to the community and say, we're putting it aside for this. You know, another thing that comes to mind personally, or I guess thoughts of is, and that was why earlier when we had that potential, but it got removed as a motion for that surplus. It's under my understanding, that we have not been successful in some of our grants, that we applied for our fire, reduction or fire prevention. I know we've set 100,000 aside, but that's not enough. It's a drop in the bucket. So is there that possibility that could be put? So I guess there's a lot of different things, moving parts here that I would hope that councilor can have a conversation as to, you know, whatever that number may be, and it doesn't have to be allocated to all in one place. We could separate, but those are just my thoughts that I'm hoping we can have a conversation about.
Thank you, Councilor Haas, Councilor Reese.
Thank you, sir. To be honest, I'm not real comfortable coming up with, you know, where are we gonna spend 800,000 on the spur of the moment in this meeting? Could we not just vote on the tax rate and then make a motion, you know, to have a discussion on that 800,000? I don't wanna be saying tonight, you know, like put the money here, put the money there. And this would be a good thing to take back to our people, to ask where would they want their money best spent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Reese, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a side point, if the council does want to continue with this conversation. But the one thing to keep in mind is all 800,000 could just be absorbed into operations, because we're subsidizing our operational budget with our utility revenue. And our utility models and how we're going to pay for our assets in the very near future for utilities is all based on that, our utility revenue standing alone to fund itself. So that $1.4 million that we're using of utility revenue to subsidize the current operational budget, that needs to be addressed very quickly. That's in the next couple of years, that will have to come through taxation. 800,000 goes a long ways and could, you know, do a little better than cut that deficit in half. So because that is a tax rate increase or assessment or tax revenue that we'll have to offset that over the next, I would say, probably 2 to 3 years to keep on schedule with what we're planning for utilities.
Thank you, CEO. I have myself in next. I'm hoping somebody puts forward some kind of motion with the proposed maybe percentage split. We're not tying ourselves to an $800,000 in additional revenue. But one of the things that I would like to see, and it goes back to Councillor Taylor's motion earlier about having a mill rate stabilization reserve. I would like to see something like that established as well. I don't know that it's $800,000 worth, but some kind of a responsible split that for any additional money that's available for how it gets applied moving forward after today. That's one thing. Certainly some money into asset management, but I'm not sure the whole 800,000 is the responsible choice for that. But I'm gonna leave that maybe as I can't move anything. Ready? Comments, questions? Councilor McGowan, Mayor Nissen?
One of the ones again, and I realize I said it already, but I just want to make sure that it's captured in the discussion before any directions at the floor. Citizens have been asking about rec center potentially, and putting it into a rec center reserve fund. If by future plebiscite that's not supported, then by, you know, will of council, future council, that can be redirected to a more appropriate place where it could be kept, if it is successful, in a rec center reserve, and understanding the sheer cost of that potential project, I think that's something to keep in mind.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn, Anderson.
Thank you. And through the chair of the committee, I would support a mill rate stabilization fund for some percentage. I think that is a reasonable idea for setting us up for future success. I'd also like to see some of the additional go towards that asset management plan, and just what CO Panasic mentioned, taking some of it and putting it on our operating expenses so that we can have those utility revenues go directly towards the utility system and the asset management of that in the future. And I would also support breaking out an amount to put towards the recreation center reserve. Since day one of the recreation center project back in 2007, the number one thing council needs to do is put away money. We've seen that with all the other recreation centers. Edson's a great example. 10 years of putting away money before they got anything really moving on that. It's the strategy we need to do. So I would support all three of those utilizations if the consensus were to come up.
Thank you, Mayor Nissen, Councilor Voss.
So what I'm gathering, and I'm gonna look at administration, because I agree with all of these things, so what I have in mind. Taking into account that other motion has not been passed, so we don't have an $800,000 necessarily at this point. But we could have some, so I'd like to propose that a third, and a third, whatever that amount is. A third goes into our rec center, a third goes into asset management, and a third goes into a rate stabilization fund. Now what that amount is, I don't know because of the other motion, but this way. We're putting money away for things, and as Councillor McGoon said, I mean, if the rec center plebiscite the way, however it goes, we are still looking at money that needs to be put into that center. At some point, that's gonna cost us some money, so is that? Would that be sufficient enough for this purpose, to make a consensus for? And I'm looking for the wording on how do I word that without an actual.
Through the chair to Councilor Voss. Yeah, my recommendation is that we could probably. Listen. We could word it that anything over and above. The required adjusted budget be allocated on the following basis, and then we can simply say a third for this purpose, a third for this purpose, and a third
Okay.
for this purpose.
So that's what I'd like to see consensus on. That. To see the wording, I'll leave. There we go.
Okay, we'll just
Yeah.
cobble together a consensus request there and then we'll put it to committee. We'll just wait for the consensus request.
Hinton beavers and cubs that we heard come into the building.
Oh.
That's what that was. Hinton beavers and cubs,
The kids?
the kids, yeah.
What did they come here for?
They came for a tour of the town hall, but we didn't wrap up in time.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, this room's.
That's the room's not that.
They can come in and say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bryn.
How many beavers and cubs are there? They sound like an awful lot.
Maybe they're very good behaved though, you never know.
Councilor Ross, you want to look at that and make sure that's reflected in your intent?
Yeah, that's my intent. Yeah.
All right, so over to committee then, Councilor Taylor and then Councilor Race.
That quantity of money for a tax rate stabilization fund gets you approximately a 2% modification in any given tax year. That's how much it gets modified, so. If you're up with 8%, you wanna go down to 6% or something like that. It's not a big degree of change.
Thank you for that, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Race.
Thank you, sir. I don't mind this, but I'm just going, where would we get the biggest impact with this money? Would we get a bigger impact if we put a larger sum down on the utilities, the rec center, rather than a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there? Like, what is our end goal? And for me, I wanna see the impact. How will this impact our citizens? So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, thank you, Councilor Race. Was that direct to all committee or? Okay, thank you for that. Myself and then Councilor Haas, I'm in support of this. I think this is a responsible way for council to commit to fund some of the things that they see are probably shortfalls in the community to help bring lasting benefit moving forward and to help fund things that we know are coming forward. That's all I'm gonna speak to it. I'm in favor. Thank you. And Councilor Haas.
Yeah, I guess to that answer, to me, this is, in my opinion, it'll impact all of those things, in my opinion. You know, I mean, sure, there are major things that, like, we have multiple things, so the better we can spread that out. To benefit our citizens in various different ways, whether it's through a tax stabilization for the future. I realize it's not a huge amount, but it's a start as well. But I mean, the rec center, you know, it's putting money aside, on top of what we already are putting aside, on a yearly basis. You know, and whatever regards it goes, and I mean, our asset management is it's in jeopardy. So I just personally, I think it's better to spread it out evenly or better to a different number of projects than to one, because that to me is a better course of action in my opinion. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Councilor Haas, Councilor Taylor, and then Mayor Nisson.
I think you raise an excellent point. Is this gonna be enough to be significant for any of these categories? Like I mentioned, it doesn't provide much in the way of a tax rate stabilization change. Or is this kind of a consensus decision in order to pass a vote? It's not gonna be significant. That's a good question.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor, Mayor Nisson.
Thank you, and I'll be in support of this. I think that 2/3 here, as we've allocated, go to critical shortfalls in our existing budget and our plans, and that's on the recreation center reserve and the asset management side of things. But I want to speak for a minute about the tax stabilization establishment. So much of this, we know with the new provincial funding formula that in 2 years, we're going to see a decrease in provincial funding because of the provincial budgets that happened. I guess it was last year when they had a decrease. So now municipal funding formula is tied to provincial budget with a 3-year arrears. And we know from that forecast that we are going to see a decrease in provincial funding for one of our upcoming future budgets. And to put a little bit of money aside as a rate stabilization before that decrease happens, I think is a great way to buffer our community from that decrease that we know is coming in a couple of years. And then I look at the inflationary environment that we happen to be. And I think in 2027, I don't want to be sitting here passing a budget that's a substantially larger increase because we failed to put a little bit aside now, knowing that our municipal or our provincial transfers were going to decrease and our costs were going to continue to inflate. And I do worry a little bit about our economy and our citizens in this community. I think avoiding excessively large tax increase in the future is a very important and prudent step for this council. So I'll be in support of this. Thank you very much.
You're missing. Committee? Okay, there's nothing further from committee. We'll call the question. The committee seek consensus to allocate any amount over the required adjusted budget. Be allocated 1/3 to recreation center reserve, 1/3 to a tax rate stabilization reserve, and 1/3 to asset management. Committee, if you could please vote now. And that is carried unanimously. Councilor Haas?
That's it. Sir, raise the table motion, please. Thank you. Lack of a word there.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Haas. And we're into administration again. We vote on raising the tabled motion.
Yes, we do.
Okay, any comments or questions on raising the tabled motion? Okay, seeing none, we will call that question. Okay, if there's no comments or questions, the committee could please vote now. Okay, that's carried unanimously, so we are now back to our previously tabled motion. If we could see it, just to refresh everyone's memory. Maybe reach consensus to bring the 2025 tax rate bylaw forward for the May 6, 2025 regular meeting of council with a residential tax rate of 5.614 and a non-residential tax rate of 9.5461. And that's reflective of option 2 with an $800,000 additional available revenue. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Committee, comments, questions, discussion? You listen?
You through the chair, just the committee, I'll just, so we talked about option 2, this is a 0% change to the mill rates for both residential and non-residential.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Nissen. Councilor Magoon?
I won't be supporting this moving forward. I think in understanding the inflation, and the cost of living increases that have hit our citizens over the course of this year. An increase is certainly something we could do, but again, it's something we have to be very delicate with. And going on past experiences of council, going back to a $400,000 increase, over what we had accepted, at one point. And how the community responded to that, I can't support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Councilor Haas?
So I guess what I have to say is I think that's an unfair. That whole circumstance of that $400,000. Had another element to it that was not shared with our community. And that is, I think that if we would have done and gone through the process that we just did. And told the community, yes, we got a $400,000 increase, but here's what we're gonna do with that $400,000. That did not happen back then. That whole situation is a completely, I believe, different. We are going ahead with a plan. Saying, yes, we know we are gonna be collecting more, but here's the reasons why. That didn't occur at that time. That was. An individual making a choice not to share that with the community or with council, so I don't believe that's. In my opinion, good comparison. I think that if there was a discussion of it, it might have been a totally different story, just like the one we just had this evening, so. That's my thoughts on it, I mean, I don't. Do I think the community may, yeah, I mean, it's more money, but there is a reason for it. And that's the whole conversation that we just entertained now, so, that's my thoughts on that, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Host, Councillor Lagoon.
And the second part then would be what's needed to be collected by the municipality in order to make the budget that was passed by the town of Hinton happen. And we understand that it's less than what we had initially planned. And so any decision by council to collect more than that, I want to tread very carefully with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lagoon. I have myself next in queue, in light of our previous direction that we gave. I will be in support of this now that I know what the extra funding is, or sorry, the additional revenue is going to be going towards. I think for me, that's a responsible decision. I know I'm allocating it to future infrastructure that's going to be needed and to minimizing future tax impacts on years where unforeseen circumstances force a higher than expected tax burden on our citizens. The other reason I'm supporting this, we're having this debate in open committee meeting. It's going to go to regular council. We'll have another opportunity to debate it. Citizens have opportunity to give feedback between now and when it comes to regular, and we can always change it when it comes to regular. I'm supporting this because I feel the impact on the average household is minimal, especially when you compare it to the benefit that it's going to bring to the community. By my math, the average annual impact per residential unit is $79. $79 to be able to better fund the future construction of the rec center, to better fund asset management, and to better manage future tax impacts is, to me, that seems like a responsible decision of council, and that's why I'm going to support moving this forward. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
I don't support it because I can't take this in isolation of the utility rate fee increase, which was substantial. And yeah, 0% mill rate increase, but there's actually a 3.7% increase to the net municipal taxes, which is the money that comes out of people's pockets. So those two together are, I think, putting a bit of a burden on the taxpayer. So I don't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Committee. Sorry, Councillor Reese. Councillor Reese.
I will support it, and I do have to say, the wonderful thing about committee of the whole is we give a direction tonight, and now we have 2 weeks to get it to our citizens and for them to tell us what they think. And they'll tell us what they think, and then we will make that big decision May 6th. This may change, or it may move ahead, but I will support this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Reese. Councillor Taylor.
Is that true? This comes back in 2 weeks?
There's no council meeting next week.
It's correct. Oh, there's no council meeting next week.
It's the 5th Tuesday of this month, so we don't meet again until regular on May 6th.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Committee, anything further on the proposed direction? Okay, there's nothing further. We will have that called the question. Sorry, the committee reached consensus to bring the 2025 tax rate bylaw forward to the May 6, 2025 regular meeting of council with a residential tax rate of 5.614 and a non-residential tax rate of 9.5461. Committee, if you could please vote now. And that is carried 5-2 with councillors Magoon and Taylor against. All right, is there anything further regarding 2025 tax rate discussion? Okay, and we'll move on to information items. Item 6.1, Hinton Mountain Bike Association Capital Funds Administration.
The Hinton Mountain Bike Association has met with the appointed liaison for the town of Hinton and let us know their plans for 2025, which will require some use of their capital funding, specifically to purchase a snow dog, which is a unit that will be used for winter trail grooming, as well as the remainder amount, 23,000 will be used for the 2025 mini flow trail. They did confirm they have some other competitive grant funding that's been secured, but it's not Town of Hinton's position to make that announcement on their behalf. That would be the club. And the report is before you just for information, as the Town of Hinton does retain the capital funds, bringing it forward.
Thank you. Councilor McGill.
I'd just like to see consensus that committee accept this report for information.
Thank you, Councilor McGill. Did you want to speak to it?
Just, you know what, appreciation to the Hinton Mountain Bike Association. They do great work in our community. There are so many involved people who make sure that this is an aspect of our community that we can be really proud of. And it's just, not every community has access to something like this or people like this. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilor McGill. Councilor Faber.
Motion to?
Yeah, did you not have your hand up?
No.
Oh, sorry, I thought you did. Mayor Nisson?
Thank you through the chair to committee. I just want to say, you know, great work on the Hinton Mountain Bike Association. I'm excited to see the purchase of a snow dog for that winter trail grooming. Bringing more winter activities to our community is a great thing, and any community group that does that, thank you and good work. And, you know, I think about the howler and the growler, with Lake Clark in February. Every year I've gone, it's been a bigger thing. People from all over Alberta are coming out to these events. The Hinton Mountain Bike Association's put on great trails, put on great events, and I'm really happy to see them moving forward with their capital asset rollouts. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nisson. Liddy, anything else? Roll call question then. The committee accept this report for information. And if you could please vote now. That is carried unanimously. Committee, anything further on the Hinton Mountain Bike Association capital funds? Okay, seeing nothing, we will move on to reporting. Council reports. We're going to start across the table with Councilor Chambers.
I attended last week the Northern Rockies Historical Society meeting. They did share a few things. They are working quite diligently on the roof replacement, so that has been going well. It was with a very generous donation. Been working on that. They're quite busy right now with the school groups, and they've been doing some programs at Pine Valley Lodge as well over the last few months. And they will be, I'm not sure if it's up quite yet, but they're doing a traveling nature photography exhibit. I think it's almost fully up if it isn't all there now, called Mysterious Forest Life. So they've got some new exhibits. They've also rehung their Indigenous plant exhibit, and we're quite successful through the Winter Magic events in the first quarter of this year. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I attended the Chamber of Commerce AGM just recently. It was good to see the members. They had a couple of openings. They didn't receive any nominations or anything, so they have 6 members currently with 2 openings yet. But they were very thankful that the DMO is up and running, because now the chamber can focus on chamber stuff. Also, Mr. Tatawa was there, of course, stating that the renovations are nearly complete. The facelift at the visitor center, and will be open for business here soon, so that's great. It was great to hear. Also, of course, they were very thankful of their contribution in the past from the town to assist in getting that DMO going and the renovations. So they were also happy to hear as well on our initiatives going on with housing. They were happy to hear the Airbnb situation is being managed better with the contractors and things, and we're happy to hear too that some penalties were issued to those that aren't complying with the bylaw. And it was also interesting to hear they had their tax accountant representative there, and apparently the federal government, CRA, has announced that if Airbnb operators do not follow local bylaws, they will not be able to claim that as a business. So there is some initiative there that they must comply with our bylaws. So I'm not entirely sure how that works with administration, but you know, what kind of due diligence the CRA is doing to make sure. But from what I understand, if they don't pay the $1,500 requirement on non-principal, then all their income and everything will not be taxable. So, or they can't account for it.
Director McLaughlin. One of the developments that I think is directly related to what you're saying is some of the operators have actually been contacting us for their business numbers, which now goes into a certain spot on the Airbnb website. So we think that some of those changes are coming out of that they're now actually seeking those business license numbers to show their compliance on the website.
Excellent. So that's fantastic to hear, because I mean, we've been trying to lobby the provincial government, but the federal government has stepped up and said, no, they need to be accountable for that and follow the rules. So that was excellent to hear. I'd not been aware of that, but yeah, that was mentioned at the meeting. Other than that, I have and I also attended, we had an invitation to the Crescent Valley Playground initiative. So the group of parents that they want to improve the playground equipment at Crescent Valley Playground. And I have to applaud the few parents that were there. I just encourage the other parents of Crescent Valley to get involved. This is a huge endeavor, you know, and it's all on the parents. They have to do all the fundraising, do all the, you know, so I did ask them, like, if they have questions or anything, maybe to reach out to administration, to Trent yourselves, you know, because the other thing I mentioned is we do have projects coming forward, so maybe if there was somehow some cost benefit to have contractors out, they've got more, you know, if they're doing work for us and they can do work for them, maybe there's some benefit to them, but it's a big endeavor, and as we all know, that equipment is not cheap. And one of the biggest things that also is the surfacing. Because currently right now they have sand and gravel and things like that, so that's another huge cost. So yeah, so a lot of fundraising will be coming down the pipe for that area. So then I have a NASH meeting on Sunday and a board meeting for the library on the 28th. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Huss. Councilor Magoo.
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Magoo, Mayor Nissim.
Thank you. Through the chair to committee, it is service awards season again, so Chamber Awards Gala is happening this Saturday. Those of you who maybe missed out on that. But more importantly, the Town of Hinton Staff Service Awards is May 8th. If you haven't seen the email, you can RSVP with Ms. Amy County. That's all I have for council this evening. Thank you.
Mayor Nissim, Councilor Rice.
Thank you very much, sir. So April 16th, 6 o'clock at night, I attended I didn't attend, I via Zoom, the MacGyver session on Bill 50. That man is such a good speaker. You couldn't see him. But you could just hear him. And very interesting 1 hour. I did send all of council that meeting. Thursday, April 17th, I attended Hinton Youth committee meeting. There was an excellent presentation put on by the Hinton Bike Club. Very, very good presentation. And they're looking for volunteers. If there's anybody here who would like to volunteer, so the students worked on their presentation for council, and they also spent time on their big initiative for this year. Very good meeting. And I also attended another Zoom session, and that was with waste management. That was April 16th. It was very interesting, a lot of information, and I do believe nowadays to build a cell at the landfill is $2.3 million. And that's why it's so important that everybody gets involved in that ticket to the curb. The 24th and 25th of May is how to prevent stuff going to the landfill and us having to build another one. And that's it, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Ace, Councillor Taylor.
Well, I attended the waste meeting too, and the exciting news there is there's a big surplus. You know, probably because of the Jasper fire situation, so their surplus is also going to a, I don't know what you call that kind of undesignated fund where you can. And then the waste authority, I know what I called it in the past, then the waste authority will, the waste authority, council will get the vote on where that fund goes later.
Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And myself, I have nothing to report. We'll move on to Chief Administrative Officer status report.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing to report, but I have included the council action pending list, so if there's any questions on that or anything else, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, CAO. Maybe any questions for CAO? No, Councillor Taylor.
With respect to one of the items on that action pending list related to Winnie Andy and Councillor McGowan's direction. I'd asked when that was coming back. You said April. So, my understanding is that still coming back in April?
Through the chair, our plan is to bring it for the next committee of the whole meeting.
Okay.
Committee, any other questions for CAO Knesset? Okay, there's nothing else. We'll move on to section 8. Looking for a motion. Listen.
Motion to adjourn.
Mayor, listen. We have a motion to adjourn. Maybe if you could please vote now. All carried unanimously. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.